So because we are recording, we just ask that you hold your questions until the end so we can get a recording of the presentation, but we will have plenty of time for you to ask any questions you may have. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Craig Hayton, our Community Services Director.
Great. Thanks, Shauna. Good afternoon, everybody. Appreciate everybody coming on. What a great attendance we have. We're thrilled for our first public meeting for the Ken McDonald Clubhouse renovation. As Shauna mentioned, I'm with the City of Tempe Community Services team. We've got a couple other Tempe team members on here, Alex, Julie, Savannah, and Shauna. We've also got our partners, Tom, or our partner, Tom, with the Courseco team that is, as of this past July, has been managing the golf course with the Courseco team. And we also have Doug and Alex from the Douglas Frederickson Architects team that we're partnering with, that we're working with for this exciting project. So we're thrilled to have you all here today. As Shauna mentioned, we look forward to taking your questions. We ask that you hold those to the end. If you do have any questions that you want to put in the chat, please feel free to do so during the process. And if you have a very specific question about a slide, if you want to reference that slide number, that always actually helps us pull back up to a specific slide when we get to that point. So for anybody who has joined us, if you could keep yourself on mute until we get to the end, that would be wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We've got a PowerPoint presentation that I'll run through, give or take about a half hour for the presentation, and then we'll have from there, leave us a half an hour for questions. And this is one of two public meetings we're holding today. The first one being virtual here at noon, and then we are meeting tonight at 6 o'clock down at the Desert Willow Lower Level Library Program Room at Southern and Rural, down at the lower level of the main city library. So I'm going to share the presentation. So I'll lead us through kind of where we're headed this afternoon, as I mentioned, for about a half hour. We're fortunate that we really get to kick off this conceptual design process. Love to give some project background. This is obviously Ken McDonald's golf course is just about hitting its 50th year within the city of Tempe. And with that, we know that the clubhouse is ready for a full renovation. I'm going to turn it over to Tom with the Courseco team. We're partnering on this project in so many different ways that I'd love for him to run through some of the project objectives. It's not meant to be comprehensive of everything that we're trying to accomplish, but some things that we're definitely keeping in mind. I'll turn it over to the DFA team to work through the concept elements. Certainly this is not a done deal. This is our first public meeting. We'd anticipate another one further up in the spring where we'll have more of a refined concept. And then I'll work through next steps and timeline before we then pause for questions at the end. So a little bit of project background. Ken McDonald Golf Course Clubhouse is now entering its 50th year. We've known for a period of time that it's ready for a full renovation. So the project background is that our goal is to fully renovate the clubhouse. Not that we're making tenant improvements and keeping it where it is, but as you notice, as we run through some of the site concept slides, that we're actually looking at a full renovation of the clubhouse, sited pretty close to where the current one is, but it certainly is going to be a fully new clubhouse. This is something, as I mentioned, we do have a new partnership with the Courseco team. We're thrilled. This is in this partnership, we're jointly funding the new clubhouse. So we're thrilled that we are working together through this. We have an $8 million budget that we're working through for design and construction together. And we're partnering, as I mentioned, with Douglas Frederickson Architects. We're thrilled. They've got a lot of experience with golf projects, but also local golf projects as well. So they understand the local golf scene and some opportunities that we have, especially the golf course with some significant history within Tempe. And also, we just want to mention, especially for those that may have participated in previous surveys, whether it was last year when we were seeking some input on our potential partnership with Courseco, or back in 2016 when we had reached out to the public just asking some general questions on an initial survey for a renovated clubhouse. We're utilizing both of those sets of information through those surveys as a starting place for where we are today. And that is really helping us with our project objectives, but also with the concept that we're going to be seeking some input on. And just to frame the overall process of where we're at the very beginning of what we consider a three-phase process. We have our conceptual design that we're going to be taking through the end of what will be this fiscal year for the city that ends in June. During this time, we want to make sure that we are able to site the clubhouse. We identify generally what it's going to look like, how big it's going to be. And then depending on where it is, what other opportunities or needs are there going to be based on where we locate the clubhouse, and some potential improvements that we make to the site just based on the siting for that clubhouse and its location. We know previously that we've heard from survey about opportunities that we have. But we know in this conceptual design process, this is a good opportunity for us really to look from a high level at that space and try to identify what it's going to be before we then move into formal design, which is when we actually create the construction documents where our architectural team will work in tandem likely with a construction company to really help, and with our teams with Corsco, to identify all of the specific elements and all of those details that would then lead to a successful construction project. We're identifying construction to begin as soon as the summer of 2025. It may be later than that, but that is when we actually have funding identified within our capital improvement program. That is identified in July of 2025. We would anticipate realistically conceptual design through the end of June, and then it's going to take us a little bit of time to work through those formal design and permitting elements before we then head into construction. And with that, I'll turn the next slide over to Tom with the Corsco team, Tom Bugby, and some project objectives.
Perfect. Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Very, very exciting times to be talking about this clubhouse. And so today I'm just going to go over a little bit of the project objectives. What's important here in the project objectives is we used a number of different sources to put these together. First of all, as Craig mentioned, there's been a number of surveys over the years. We are, as a golf course operator, can speak to some of the important pieces that we will need in the clubhouse. And then, of course, partnering with the architects here who are very well versed in clubhouse design. And so together, we really have used all those sources to come up with these project objectives, recognizing one thing that's very important is this is a municipal golf course. This is the city of Tempe's golf course. And so we have to have that in focus while we put these objectives together. So, the number one thing is that the existing clubhouse is well past its useful life and no longer functions mechanically or even functionally with what we would need for the long term there. So a lot of this is upgrading the overall experience. And that's everything from the food and beverage experience, the parking, making sure that that is able to improve, looking at things like golf practice facilities and the golf retail, all need to be improved with a new clubhouse. Another very important piece to us is looking at expanded uses for the clubhouse. This is, as I mentioned, a community asset. We look at this as an opportunity to expand community programming that can be hosted out there and have more residents and also visitors to the city of Tempe use this facility. So not just golfers, looking at ways to expand the use and have other people be out there at the facility using it on a regular basis. And then the final piece here is really making sure that we remain a good partner and a good neighbor. We do have residents that live near the golf course. We have to be very conscious of them and want to be good neighbors. And a good partner, meaning making sure that we can operate within the budget that is allocated for this clubhouse and making sure that it is functional, not just today, but long into the future, both for the city of Tempe, us as the operator, and probably most importantly, for all the visitors there to the clubhouse. So that's how these project objectives were put together. And we're very excited to be able to show some of the first conceptual designs.
Great, thanks, Tom. And before I turn it over to Douglas and team, just to reiterate a couple foundational items as we start going through some of these initial concepts. As Tom mentioned, we're leaning on previous survey information that we've heard from customers and folks that live in the community. But in the full renovation of the clubhouse, we actually are going to be looking at keeping the existing clubhouse operational so that we're able to put as much funding into the new clubhouse as possible, which is then going to require us to just go through a little bit of a shift of where that clubhouse is located. It's not a macro shift to a different location on property, but it is within that same general area. So that's some context that we're working through and working from as we start working through these comment periods. And we do have an online survey that we'll mention at the end. And again, as you have some questions, please reference the slide, especially as I turn it over to Douglas and Alexandra, just to work through some of the first looks of what we're looking at. Doug, you ready for me to move forward?
Ready. Hello, everybody. I'm Doug Frederickson, along with Alex Lemos, and we are the partners in Douglas Frederickson Architects in Phoenix, Arizona. We are very excited to be leading the design effort for what Ken McDonald Golf Course and Clubhouse will eventually become. Our firm specializes in golf clubhouse design, hospitality, and restaurants. You may be familiar with some of the projects we've done: Greyhawk, Isabella's Kitchen, Southern Dunes, Weekapaw, Whirlwind, Sunridge Canyon, Papago, and our latest one, which will be ready next month, is Arizona Built. So we're bringing our experience and insight to ensure the success of this project and the continuing legacy of Ken McDonald. And has been mentioned by Tom and Craig that critical to this effort is the input and involvement from the community and the residents, because really this is more than a golf facility. It is truly a community facility, and we've looked at it in that way. So I'd like to start off first on this initial slide showing you the overall context of the project. This illustrates an overlay of the existing facility with our proposed design. Starting from rural and the entry off of Divot Drive, it is obviously something that we will want to pay attention to, of improving the signage and arrival to the golf course and facility. We are going to be keeping the existing parking that's south of the canal and is shared with the YMCA right now. And the access will still remain the same of the bridge that crosses the canal. So what you're seeing here, mostly on the right slide, is a new entry drive that will come down between two parking lots, which we're calling the west parking lot and east parking lot, and it'll come to a common arrival point, which you can see is right about where the existing building is, which is that red tile roof that's there. The new clubhouse will be located directly above that, so that somebody arriving will be able to arrive at the clubhouse, drop their clubs off, and work from there. So the clubhouse is shifted to the north a little bit. We have created substantial setbacks to the building, as well as to the parking lot, which we will work with the adjacent neighbors, hopefully, in developing a landscape and lighting plan that will be compatible with their concerns. And then if you notice that just the building and the adjacent houses, that the building is located such that it does not really block the view line. All the houses look past the footprint of the building. So that's, I'll get into a little bit more in the site plan in detail, but in context here, by moving the clubhouse north, we are obviously going to become necessary to shorten 18 green. So it will now be 375 yards. We are looking at the potential of adding an additional tee to make up that yardage. We have enlisted as part of our team Forrest Richardson as the golf course architect. And Forrest, in his history, has some mentorship with Jack Snyder, the original architect for the golf course. So it's very unique and good for the team. So we're seeing a new green location for 18. The dotted circle around it shows the safety area. And then adjacent to the driving range, we're going to be doing a new putting green practice facility there that's directly off of the back of the driving range and right next to the clubhouse road. So this just shows the overall context of what we're trying to achieve right now. Next slide. Okay, so this is a little bit more blow up of the development on the north side of the canal. We're going to be using this dedicated entry drive that splits the two parking lots. One thing is that we will have to make up some substantial grade that happens from the canal down to where the golf course is. So this road will be sloping down and coming to the level of where we eventually establish the clubhouse. And like I mentioned, the drop-off area provides the access directly into the clubhouse, but it's also the bag drop. So I can drop bags off right on the park staging area, and I can put them right onto the carts for the tournaments. And then we've got the west parking lot and east parking lot. And you can see that substantial setbacks have been developed in there. One of the main things that we've talked about, and that what everybody has been seeing as a high priority, is increasing the parking and adjacency to the building. This certainly does it. This provides 150 spaces directly adjacent to the clubhouse, which with our calculation now of where we are would be what is required to operate the clubhouse and meet both requirements. You can see the dashed red line of where the clubhouse will be. The east parking lot more than likely will be the construction area where we lay down during construction because we need to get materials and access to construction site. And that's not possible keeping the existing parking lot on the south of the canal, which we need to operate. One other thing that we're doing is that we have taken the cart path. So when you're coming back from the golf course on the north and going across the canal, the cart path will now be connected so that you can drive through there and come across the canal. And also what's shown there is the trail system across the canal as well in the adjacency. Now, one other thing to notice, which we think is the biggest amenity on the site, is the substantial amount of green lawn area that is directly north of the building. Now, this I'll show you in detail when I open up the floor plan, but this is where the covered patio and the dining experience connects out to the golf course. And this substantial green lawn area is really, really a major amenity. It doesn't cost much, but it really, really draws the families and the people and the events that are there. And it does show that when that dotted area to the right of the white floor plan of the building, that we will be anticipating growth into a future meeting facility as part of phase 2. And that area will be set up for tournaments and the like, and community events and things like that. But if you have been to Isabella's Kitchen or you've been to Papago that we've done, you can see how popular that big green lawn area is, and really driving people out here to have a wonderful food and beverage experience, which is important for us financially because just running golf doesn't really pay the bills anymore. So it's necessary to really expand the food and beverage experience. Then the next slide. So the building itself. Somebody said something. Okay. The building itself, when you come up off the drop off, you're going to be coming into a main lobby area, and off that main lobby area will be access, first of all, to the restrooms and to the administrative offices. And as you go in further, we'll provide access to the golf shop to your left, which is backed up by their golf offices. The golf shop will be expanded in size, and we'll be upgrading the brands and product that's developed. It also has a grab and go in there so people can grab something very quickly, go out onto the course. It has access and views toward their operations, art staging, people on the first tee, people on the practice green, people on the driving range. And then on the north side of the building is one long room that opens up with garage doors or operable doors all the way around. There's a corner bar with an exterior patio adjacent to it on two sides. And then the dining room is really kind of on the right side of the plan, and it also connects to a covered patio that's there. It's backed up by the kitchen and our service area that we need to operate the kitchen. We have 79 seats that are inside the grill, and we have 160 that are on the patio and hardscape and undercover. And then you can see the dash line where the future community and meeting facility will become. This footprint is 7,000 square feet of conditioned space. Just for your knowledge, the existing building is 6,000 square feet under roof. Next slide. And we put the full fleet of 79 carts down below grade. This will be a basement level, which is accessible by a cart ramp that takes you out to the cart staging area. It does include bag storage and club repair and small parts. This is very functional. It's all the parts that we need and the code requirements in terms of that. This is about 6,000 square feet of space. Very efficient, as we're wanting to keep costs down because of the cost of building these days is very, very expensive. Next slide. Okay, so architecturally, this would be the south view is coming up to the building, where this is what you'll experience from the drop off. And there'll be a feature sign there with the McDonald logo, and we're naming the restaurant something else. We have room for identity there. It's a very, very simple, low profile building, with keeping in mind, again, that it is expensive to build. So what we're doing is looking at using a concrete block that is painted. And this was suggesting a very wonderful pale yellow color with white accents on the metal. And this would be very modern looking. This extrusion of the box from the basement up through the floor and through the building is what's giving us our best chance of being able to keep the building down in our projected budget that we're working with. The west elevation shows you the bar where the people are in red there. That's where the bar is located under the covered patio. Next slide. The north is showing the extensive canopy that's over the dining area. And then the east is showing you what's facing the neighborhood, which is pretty much a blank wall and a service area. And then you see a little bit of the patio that's over there. Now we did some initial renderings that I think will give you a pretty good idea of what we're looking at here. I think it's a very residential, very comfortable, very golf-oriented facility. Want to hit the next slide? Okay, so this is a view looking back at the clubhouse from the new putting green. You can see the big lawn area that's there, the extent of the covered patio. We have a great opportunity here. We chose to orient the building more looking toward the north to avoid the brutal west sun that's setting, as in some of the comments that people made in existing, so they do not face the building west. And practice facility, it's not necessarily always the best thing to look over, and you've got wonderful views to the north. You can see that we will have twinkle lights out there, string lights. We will have fire pits, the big green lawn area for lawn games for the kids, setting up functions. Very simple and very much, I think, a wonderful statement that Ken McDonald will be. The next slide. And this is a view of the patio. We can see the fire pits. You can see the string lights. All those garage doors will open up to the outside, or movable doors. They'll just be movable. Wonderful patio space. Next slide. And then this is looking back towards the new 18th green. You can see we've got staging for carts right out front. The bar connects right out to the activity. The bar is located on the west side of the facility, which has the tendency to be the more louder area. So we're using the building to kind of block potential noise being generated from this particular area. In the next slide. So these are kind of the elements that we're using, where you'd be using a little bit board form concrete to do that feature wall up in the front. The interiors, this is a shot from Papago where we did have a substantial budget that we needed to work within as well. And I shouldn't say substantial, it required budget that we needed to work within. And therefore, you get this like wonderful opportunity to expose the utilities and just make it a wonderful, wonderful space, which you see it burned in a lot of restaurant signs. You lower left, right is showing the angled metal fascia. And then if you notice on the renderings, we found these perforated columns set to be a retail center that I did. And we don't want to have trees blocking the views from the golf course, but I would like to have a little softness and greenery. So we decided to kind of make the columns living with green plants. And then the major building material will be this raked concrete block, in which we're going to be painting light yellow. Next. Okay,
All right, thanks.
that's pretty much the story, and we hope you like it. We're very excited.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Doug. A lot of work has gone in just to prep for this meeting. Again, these are some initial ideas and the concept where we want to hear from the community, whether you play, you live around, or you're part of the Tempe or regional community that you have an interest in Ken McDonald Golf Course. We know that the course has, as Tom mentioned, it's a municipal facility. It holds a special place in the heart of Tempe, especially kind of South Central Tempe. It does for me. I started on the grounds crew at Ken McDonald back in 1996. But we're really, we're here to hear from you. We certainly would love to answer your questions, but also want to point you to a public survey period that we have open today until March 20th. You can log on through tempe.gov//forum. This really is to help us discern what who folks are that are providing some feedback, how you currently interact with the golf course and the facility, and then what some of your thoughts are just based on the information that we've shared today. With that, as I mentioned previously, this is a 3-phase process. We've got conceptual design that is kicking off here through June. That'll then move into formal design. We'd anticipate that taking about a year or so from July of 24 through June of 25. And as I mentioned previously, construction, just based on the funding that we have available, can't start until July of 25. We certainly hope to move to that important part of the process where we know it's really where shovel hits ground and we start making some improvements. We know that there's going to be some short-term impacts for some long-term benefits, but we want to minimize whatever those construction-related impacts are, not just for the playing community, but also for those folks who live next to the golf course, understanding that we are in a residential area. So with that, we're going to move on to questions. I'm going to stop sharing and we'll have Shauna navigate the question piece. I'll take a first stop and go from there.
Thanks, Craig. And we do have some questions in the chat. And then you're also welcome to raise your hand if you'd like to ask your question. So then we can come to you after we answer a few of these here. So first question is, will the clubhouse renovation include increasing the size of the restaurant area to handle large golf tournaments?
Yeah, that's a great question. It does currently include a larger area. Doug, do you have kind of the comps of what existing is, or maybe Tom, you probably know better than I would, of what kind of, how much larger of a space between the outdoor is a huge game, right? We don't currently have that.
Right.
And I believe even indoors, we've got more spaces in the new.
The increase, Alex, do you have the exact number of seats that are in the existing facility?
Yeah, so in the existing, it's noted that there are 66 interior seats and 24 exterior seats. And then in the new plan, we have a total of 68 interior seats. And as Craig noted, there's 168 roughly outside in the new patio.
Perfect.
So we've increased the size a little bit inside, but the real draw and everybody wants is exposing the exterior to more seating areas, which is less expensive space to build, obviously.
Perfect. All right, Shauna.
So somewhat related, will the covered patio have evap cooling or misters?
More than likely, it will have misters and TVs. Because the ceiling height is at a substantial, probably around 12, 13 feet tall. Open up the view. Heaters don't really work that well that high up in the air, so we will have heating done with portable heaters on the patio, which we've done in other places.
And I think some
Okay.
of this, Tom's team will work through just operationally and try to make some of those micro adjustments. Whatever we don't design in, we can certainly look at just to make sure that we're flexible.
And will the facility be using solar to power the building and charging the carts?
You know, I can just take a first stab there. We're looking at conceptual without getting into some of the design elements. That's a great comment and something we would love to dive into and just see what some of those opportunities are. We know that the city has an International Green Construction Code that it works under. So those are things that we will certainly look at considering. We haven't identified those details at this point, but that's something we want to make sure we're looking at any sustainability options that we could afford for sure. But great comment.
Okay, and how long is hole 18 par?
Right now, 18 is 425 yards. We have taken 50 yards off in the design that I showed. Makes it 375 yards, still a par 4. Forrest, our golf course architect, is looking at the ability to do a new tee to get back around the 400-yard level, but we're not in that level of detail yet. And we will be looking, obviously, in every opportunity we can of where we can gain additional yardage throughout the entire golf course as well.
And we recognize that's a critical component. And we know that we want to keep the current facility operational. We know that there are going to be some micro adjustments that we need to make, but we certainly have that on the radar. We appreciate the question. As Doug mentioned, we're working with Forrest's team just to make sure that we're trying to minimize any negative impacts, especially based on the playing experience. So.
Okay, and what are the round items on top of the roof?
Okay, I'm required as an architect to screen the mechanical units that sit on top of the roof, and there are a couple ways to do that. I can extend the entire perimeter of the building up, which makes the mass of the building adding another 6 feet. So the screens are rooftop screen walls that hide just where the mechanical units are. So we've reduced the scale of the building, complied with code requirement to screen the mechanical units. And I think it reduces, to me, the scale of the building, adding a little bit more residential character and cost.
Great, thank you. And then what will keep the balls from being hit to the 18th green? Or I'm sorry, what will keep balls being hit to the 18th green from going into the patio area?
Yeah, Doug, I think I can pull back one of the original views. Maybe you can talk to kind of the landing zone piece or Tom as well, just based on experience. I'll defer to both of you.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Just working with the architect, they identify safe zones. That's essentially what you see, those dotted circles. And so in the design, we're going to make sure that we are well outside of those safe zones. And that's one of the reasons why we moved the green that much. And of course, we'll be looking at expanding the tee back to make up for that lost yardage.
Yeah, and I think that we've also looked conceptually that we also don't want, we have to contain people that are on the lawn area too from also getting too close to the green. So that little layer of detail there is kind of a rougher texture of planting that we're anticipating, which will be something that the golfer will not want to end up in. So when you have little details like that, it'll encourage the people that you don't want to be long on this hole because there's trouble behind it. So they would have a tendency to want to be short. Now, it's not going to stop a lot of people who aren't good golfers from potentially flying in there sometime, but we're doing our best to pay attention to that.
Okay, and once begun, how long do you estimate for construction?
Doug,
I
what does a project like this normally take?
About a year.
Okay.
And will the course stay open during the construction?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and that's one of, and if there are further questions on that one, I don't know if you're able to scan, Shauna, but our goal really is not to impact the golfing experience during this. Other than we certainly want to operate out of the existing facility. We do, as part of our long-term stewardship and our initial long-term agreement with Corsica, we are going to look at an irrigation project kind of as a second phase. We don't know how well the projects will line up, but we know that the existing irrigation on course has gone beyond its useful life. So we'll at some point we'll need to navigate that piece and how it intersects with this project. But just putting that one on the radar, it may dovetail with this one, and there may be some efficiencies that we pick up. And again, that's going to provide some benefits, just the overall playing experience. But Tom, the intent is to keep the golf course open during this construction project and just to work around what we've got, correct?
And there were questions related just to improving the range and asking if the project included any other commitments for course improvement. So,
yeah, Tom, do you want to talk on anything that may be outside of those two
Yeah.
projects?
So it's not directly related to this, but there is commitments, as Craig just alluded to. We are going to be working on replacement of the irrigation system. Also, like the clubhouse, past its useful life, and a number of other upgrades to the golf course. You know, we are currently in the we're still inside our first year, our evaluation time on the golf course, but already we've made some improvements out there on the facility, and we have a commitment to continue those improvements. And that's so no, not directly attached to the clubhouse, but yes, part of the overall master plan for the facility.
great. And then what are the plans for existing parking lot area?
Yeah, so the way that it's identified, and I'll pull up one of the early locations. We've got, as Doug mentioned, nothing's occurring with the existing parking that's south of the canal, and as identified in kind of pink here, the kind of underlayment of this parking lot is the existing facility. We've got about 16 spaces that currently serve the facility. The goal would be to improve that parking experience. That was some of the really consistent feedback that we received during multiple previous levels of input, is just how we can improve that parking experience. So the goal would be really to build upon that, but also to scale it appropriately and certainly within budget and range as well.
And this presentation will be on the project website. And so that way you can all take a look at it, zoom in, kind of see all the pieces that Craig's referring to. So next comment question is, the canal is busy with walkers, runners, and cyclists. Will there be bike racks and signage to draw those folks into the food and beverage area?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
there will.
and
We
I would
want
say
to
operation.
that. Very much encouraging that.
Yeah, and I would say, not to speak for Tom here, but the goal is, as Tom mentioned, as a municipal facility, how can this serve the greater community? The golf course is already offering a lot of community opportunities, whether it's fitness on the fairway and Easter egg hunt. There's a lot going on where, you know, we're trying to broaden what the facility actually, who it serves within the community. And I think that's really in line with Corsica's key visions of connecting with the community, making sure that this is a key space. So.
Okay, and what is the funded budget for this project and breakdown?
Yeah, I mentioned that just at the start. This is a jointly funded project for design and construction. Outside of this conceptual effort, we've identified $8 million that'll be jointly funded between the city of Tempe and Corsica.
And then will there be an area for chipping practice? I did not see that on the plan.
I think we're looking at, since we're in this initial phase and finding out what the input is from everybody, we wanted to have Forrest take a little bit more in-depth look at the areas that are available to us, not only adjacent to the clubhouse, but on the grounds as well. So I think he needs more time to spend looking at a little bit more global perspective on this. So
And we
Yeah.
do ask during the survey as well. Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just add in, obviously, this is first and foremost the golf course, and having a good practice facility is very important to us. So the short answer is we definitely want putting, chipping, practice range facilities available. But as Douglas just said, we're still, in that conceptual phase, and there's still going to be some slight movements left and right. And so we're not exactly sure where that'll end up quite yet.
On this
So-
existing concept, we've got 2 kind of practice greens over here on the west side of the facility. We do ask if there's a desire to have one larger than the other, which one would it be, the putting or the chipping green? So those are some of the questions that we're looking at. But please provide some input, some suggestions. If it's not anything that we're seeking input on very clearly, please feel free to provide some comments.
So just a question related to that then, at this point, have you identified how much smaller or not or bigger the new practice area will be compared to the existing one?
No, I don't.
Sounds
think
like
it's one of the
still.
conceptual, yeah. Tom, anything that you'd want to add other than? making
Not
sure
yet,
that
but
practice-
again, just assured that we will have good practice facilities there.
Okay, so this question asks, while the design phase is occurring over the next 18 months, can someone now figure out how the current fees can be even dollars rather than an extra 2, 3, or 4 cents? So Tom, that's probably just for you to consider.
Yes, thank you for the feedback. I will look into that with the team.
And then this comment is it'll be very critical to move the 18th tee box north in equivalent distance as the green, as the 18th is one of the more challenging holes on the course and the length is the demanding component. So you don't want the course difficulty lessened. Otherwise, plans look great. Very nice job. Not crazy about the color scheme. Another input. And then has adding some sunshade fabric canopy to the driving range been considered for patrons?
Again, that's kind of part of that's definitely on the radar, right? Is the practice facilities, the golf course itself, not part of this specific project, but definitely on our research list.
And then how wide will the setback be at the edge of the new parking area?
Doug, I'll pull up.
It varies, and I can point it out because it's a little hard to read on the graphic. Starting with the lower right corner, that is 100 feet to the property line. And where we angle, it is 60 feet. And then you can see that it's 215 feet over to where the building is. The dotted line adjacent to the residential showing the required 20-foot setback per zone. So we've tried to be fairly substantial in our setbacks and trying to create a buffer area that we can do something with the adjacent residents and work through something that they're comfortable with.
And we're also seeking input on the parking as west and east parking, not just to lump it into one area as well. So we're seeking input on both of those.
Okay, and then a question on if there's been any discussion about returning to the course to its original configuration, i.e. what is now 9 returning to number 18 and what is now 17 to become hole number 1 again.
Tom, I'll turn that to you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of varying opinions on that, a lot of discussions. Again, and similar to some of my other answers, that's not directly correlated to the clubhouse project itself, but something we continue to take input on and consider for the future, and probably would tie a little bit more directly into when we get to the irrigation system design.
Okay, great. Well, I don't see any hands raised or any other questions in the chat. We do have time if anyone else has any other questions. Otherwise, I did put the direct link to the survey in the chat, or you can find it at tempe.gov/forum. And then, as I mentioned, we'll also have the recording of this video, as well as the presentation on the project website in case you want to refer anyone to it. The survey will be open through March 20th, so there's plenty of time to review that and provide comments.
Yeah.
Was there anything else, Craig? Yeah.
I was just going to say with that, first, thanks everybody. Our team, as well as Tom's team, Doug and Alex from DFA, Really appreciate each of you taking an hour, 45 minutes or so out of your time and asking really, really great questions. We are going to be meeting in person tonight for anybody who would like to come. We'll have the same presentation, but you may hear some different questions or some questions may pop up. We are over at Tempe Public Library in the complex at Southern and Rural down on the second, on the lower level, excuse me, program room. It's called Desert Willow. So if anybody would like to join us tonight, we would love to have a great turnout and some of the similar, we'd anticipate having some similar questions, but we do appreciate everybody joining us. We will circle back up in a couple months or so once we've heard and we've made some refinements, but we are really, really excited, anxiously looking forward to moving this project on. We know there's a great need. We know that it's a great time. We're thrilled that we've got a 20, potentially a 30-year partnership with Corsco. There's been some great things that have been occurring over the past 8 months or so, and we look forward to that building. We're thrilled that we get to embark on such a significant project with some great partners to begin with. So thank you everybody for making it today, and we look forward to connecting with those who choose to come tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.